and he wanted to go look at a house. I show up at the house and he's like, go over there. And he starts taking pictures of me. And I'm like, he had me on the back deck. He had me in the kitchen. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so
Oh my gosh.
I mean, I just went to see the house. I'm a realtor too.
Right.
So I really just wanted to see this house on a lake. And it was absolutely a beautiful house. But he was taking pictures of me in the house, in the kitchen, out on the deck, in different places. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so awkward. Like, it's making me. And I'm like, no, I don't want to take pictures. And he kept pushing me into these pictures. And I told him, I'm like, this is a little too much for me.
It's no accident it sounds like you're leveling up in a video game. 48% of 18 to 29-year-olds have an online dating profile.
Make them work for it.
45% of people say they're more frustrated with this form of dating than hopeful.
There are so many people you can connect with.
The Swipe Wrong Podcast. Everyday people telling everyday stories of the swipe right world.
Well, I know he had a good time.
So good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and of course, good night. Welcome to the Swipe Wrong Podcast. I am your host. I am Chaos. Welcome to the number one podcast that is, it's number one amongst all the pumpkin spice sluts out there everywhere who, when you start ordering them in, I don't know, September, I saw that Starbucks had them back and I saw that people were ordering them. And I'm like, you are a show listener. I guarantee it. You're a show listener for sure. I want to check in and see how some of the people are doing that we talked about a year ago to. A couple of people who've been on the show a couple of times. We want to see how they're doing, where they're at, what's going on with them, if they're still dating, if they're in relationships. So we have 4 people that we've checked in on. And this one was the young lady from Let's Get Ready to Bumble. And she was in another episode too. And right now I'm blanking on the name of it, but you'll know her from Let's Get Ready to Bumble. In the meantime, what I need to say is I need to do the housekeeping, which I didn't do in the beginning. So I got to give mad love to Jay. I feel like I don't do it enough. He cuts up the show. He makes me sound, he makes me sound amazing, to be honest with you. And makes the show sound amazing. Cuts up bits and pieces and just puts it all. And like at one point I'm like, hey man, what exactly do you do? And he gave me this list of stuff on how he transmogrifies everything. If you're a Calvin and Hobbes fan, you'll know the transmogrifier, and makes it sound pretty amazing and this and that. So not that it doesn't sound, it sounds good to begin with, but then it sounds amazing when he's done. So mad love to the great and powerful Oz and everything that Jay does. And then do us a favor, follow, subscribe. The show is on a bit of a roller coaster. We were catching a whole bunch of steam and then seems to tapered off a little bit, which of course is my fault, not getting the information out there the way I should. So please be sure to share and get it out there. And hopefully you can do it. So anyway, this show is just one of the check-in episodes of seeing how somebody's doing. Some people get so interested in the stories that we have and everything that's going on with the people who we talk to. Well, we're going to catch up with a few of those people. And here is the catch up to Let's Get Ready to Bumble. Did I forget to mention we do have a word from our crack staff legal department? Here they are.
Disclaimer. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speaker and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions or any entities they represent. This podcast is about dating experiences. It is not to say one dating app is better or worse than another.
We did your Let's Get Ready to Bumble. I was blanking on the name of it. We did that on October 24th. So that was, it feels like, I don't know if it feels like it was longer than that, just because time is just
it's almost been a year though. I mean,
yeah, we're close to it. Okay. You were one of the first episodes. I think you were like episode 6 or something.
It was right in the thick of the beginning. Yeah, I sure was.
And then I think you've been on 2 other times, Valentine's, or you've been on a couple Well, I
I've been on
think one or two.
twice.
Yeah. Okay. So
Right,
one other
maybe
time.
twice.
And but
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where we left off. Really,
I can't remember the name of the second episode. But the funny thing is, and I know I talked about it in your first episode, it was like some of a lot of your stories is kind of what sparked the idea to do the show. But then it was every date I went on, everybody talking about all the shit they've been through. But I think the seed was planted because you had so much shit just happen, not even on the fucking swipe right sites, just in general.
In general. And I remember when we met, we hit it off and we've been friends, I don't know, for forever now. And you and I just started talking about the stories, and you were kind of going through a breakup. And I'm like, well, hey, listen, is this any better? And we would just start talking because my girlfriends just kept sending them back out. And I think they thought it was funny. They're like, you're fine. The next one will be better. And then the next one wasn't better. It was just like one crazy story after another. And then people are like, well, what are you doing? And I would tell you the stories like 20 years in the military, working for missile launch for Eglin Air Force, just all these people that seemed on paper to be completely normal. And then you show up and they're, trying to dirty dance like they're 20 when they're 54.
Yeah.
So it's just,
and how often does that happen? You've had, and I think since the last time we did the show, I think it was before you moved. I'm not sure if you're in the new place yet.
No, I did one here for sure.
Did you do here? Okay. All right.
I know that I did at least one here. Yeah.
So you had just got hit? Okay. All right. Fair enough. So, I mean, in the point of the episode, how's it going? How's it going?
I mean, we both talk about it. It's just so different. When we were younger, before I was married, it was you go out, you meet someone through, your friends, or you would meet someone at a gym, or meet someone at a volleyball venue. And now it's harder. You get to a certain age, you don't want to go to a bar. Yeah. So you kind of tell yourself, well, we'll just go online. There's got to be someone normal out there. And you just start weeding through. So I know we talked, and I had gone on some dates. I went on a great New Year's date, which I think I told you, fantastic. Absolutely great time. Guy lives in Canada. I'm like, really? Another country?
That's what we talked about because we named it One Night in Canada. That's what it was. That's what
Canada.
That's what we named that one because I was
for
it. So we did talk.
Great guy. It's such a great guy, and we kept in touch a little bit. But he lives in Canada. I'm like, you could have been like Kentucky, Canada.
Yeah,
have to get a passport. Like, who knows?
Yeah, maybe you didn't. Canada. No state lines. You did fucking international lines. You're like, fuck this whole state lines bullshit. I want a different country. This shit.
Next year, I'm shooting for this year maybe South America, or let's go with Europe.
Sure. Let's do something where you have to take at least 2 airplanes too instead of one. Or an airplane and a boat. Maybe an airplane and a boat. That'll work too.
For Greece, we can work that out.
Greece would be great. Yeah. Just don't go Greek.
I will tell you though, since I've been down, every time I go downtown Nashville, and now live in Nashville, I always run into people internationally.
Okay, that's cool.
So we're getting a little bit more back into the wild, so it's an interesting mix.
All right.
I did meet a guy. I told you we went out for several weeks actually, and he was from Canada to move to California, and then he decided to move to Nashville.
Okay.
So, and I've been downtown, and we met an age-appropriate guy, and he was from Ireland, and his friends were like, "Oh, he's from Ireland." I'm like, "Great, he's cool." And we start talking. He's there for his divorce party. A bunch of men flew from Ireland to Nashville.
Right. That's awesome.
Party, and I'm like, that's a great idea. They were pushing him on me and his sloppiness. And I'm like, "Hey, you're from Ireland." He's like, "How do you know?" Yeah, I mean, they're Irish. Let's be honest. You set beers into it. Yeah. But it was funny. He spilled the beer right smack on me, and my friend Cindy's like, "Oh my God." I'm like, "It was bound to happen. We're downtown." I mean, it's
sure.
It is.
Yeah.
But I wasn't looking up with the guy that was here from Ireland that I spilled the beer on me.
If you that is truly optimistic to try to keep up with the Irish on a night of drinking. And I know neither one of us are heavy drinkers by any stretch of the imagination. So just keeping up in general stuff.
I actually was just walking by, and this guy stopped us and started talking, and that's how we met him. We weren't drinking with him. I would never think that I could keep up with an Irishman. I'm not that crazy, but So I've had some interesting stories though in the wild. I had one guy. I don't know if you're familiar with Nashville's got a lot of rooftop bars. Super fun.
Yeah, sure.
It's 1 story, 2 story rooftop bar, and we were there. My friend Cindy was like, "Let's go downtown for 2 hours," which turned into 7 because it's so much fun. But we were up there, and of course we're on one rooftop, and there's some table of younger men next to us, and then across the way is some guy I think who knew him, and he's screaming at him, and we're having a good time. And I pointed him, and he's like looking around, like pointing back me, and I'm like, yeah, you. And I pretend to toss a line across like I'm fishing. Dude backs up and he's drunk, by the way. You could tell he's just drunk, pretends to catch it, and then he's wiggling and I'm pretending to reel it in and he's getting closer to the edge. I mean, it was just fun.
Yeah. No,
Good
that's
time.
cool.
And he went back to a table of older men who looked our age. I'm like, Sydney, let's just go over and make that a reason to talk to him. But unfortunately, they were gone by the time we had made it across. Still a lot of fun. Nash is a lot of fun. I'll give it that.
Yeah, it sounds like, I mean, like I've been there once and it seems like it's definitely a good spot to where like you're not only going to run into, awesome music, you're going to run into some of the most unique breed of people that you'll find.
Oh, definitely. In the music, everybody thinks country, but there's a lot of everything.
Yeah.
We saw a guy last time. He was the drummer for Poison.
Say that again?
He was the drummer for Poison.
Okay.
And he was in a backup band. And I'm like, dang, that's really cool. So we hear a lot of good stuff. And there's a lot of variety of people and people from everywhere, which is cool. But then if you get back to the online, a lot of people that come in, they're in town for the weekend.
Okay.
So you meet someone. I met this guy swiped and then I was like, oh, cool. How are you? And he lived in Orlando or outside of Orlando. I'm like, of course you do. Like nobody's from here. So there's a lot of people you run into the same boat kind of when I was at the resort area that they're not from here.
Okay. Yeah.
So they're like, do you want to come out? And I'm like, well, not really, but that's a little harder just finding that. And then there's a lot more people in Nashville, which it kind of goes back to that problem we were talking about is you just want to swipe for the next thing. Like you'll start a conversation, they're gone.
Yeah.
And so I have more matches, but I'm like, where are all these people going?
Right.
Like I have a short conversation and they'll be gone.
Right. And then because they're really just here from, for a limited amount of time. So it seems
not
like
even that, like the ones you do meet from here, I think they have so many more choices.
Yeah.
So in just all different age rings. So you might match with, let's say 6 people. You're like, okay, I've got these 6 people in my queue from Nashville or their surrounding area. And you'll start a conversation. They just kind of, where did they go?
That sounds like the dating scene of death. It is like that's a different way of being ghosted.
Right. So I guess they just were like, oh, well, look at her or look at her. I have no idea. And it's just funny. You start up a conversation. You're like, oh, this seems okay. And then I'm like, oh, where'd that go?
Right.
And some of the girls I've talked to here, there's more single women my age, which is really cool. And one girl's like, yeah, I was talking to this guy who was going great. We talked for days and then he was gone. And she was like, so hurt. And I'm like, do you ever meet him? And she's like, no.
Yeah.
I said, well, don't be so hurt if you haven't met him. You got to remember they're probably talking to several other people. She's like, you're kidding, right? I'm like, no. And she's 50, went through a divorce. So she just doesn't know. I'm like, well, let's sit down and talk about it. Welcome to the world. Know that they're talking to several other people.
I talked to a friend and she's like, hey, I listen to your show and I've started sending out to people just so they kind of understand it's almost like a tutorial of like, hey, this is what's out there, like
this is
so
what you
kind
can
of
expect.
understand. Yeah. And I know it's kind of like a extreme because they're not all like this. They're not all bad. We've all had some really good dates and stuff like that too.
No, and I've gone on a couple and there's been nothing wrong with them.
Right.
Like,
but it still is a tutorial. It's a good baseline to go with.
Right. I did go out with a guy and he seemed perfectly normal. But from the second I got there, I felt like he was somewhere else. And I'm like, he's so not interested in me. And I'm like, okay. So we hung out for like an hour and left. And he's like talking about pickleball. He's like, I'll call you. We'll play pickleball. I'm thinking, oh, I will never see this man again.
Right.
And no sooner I pulled it up, he had unmatched. Doesn't make him fine. Nothing wrong with that. He just been feeling it for whatever reason.
All right. So let's talk about that real quick. So the vibe you caught within 5 minutes of sitting at the table was this dude's not into me or whatever, or he's into something like in his phone or something?
Not really on his phone, but it was kind of weird. Like I showed up and I got a little lost, which is kind of commonplace in Nashville for me right now. But so I get a little lost. I show up, I introduce, hey, good to see you, gave him a hug. We sat down. I'm like, so tell me about your day. And he just like wasn't making eye contact. Like he said, and he was polite. And by the end, he was kind of laughing. I'm like, tell me about your kids. So I don't know if he just looked at me and said no, but he just didn't seem like it was very engaging. And you know me, it's pretty easy to talk to me. And
absolutely,
he had a pretty cool job. I'm like, oh, what a cool job. And he's like, yeah. I'm like, okay, good time.
Yeah, it's a cool job. Yeah.
And they're like, do you want to order anything? I said, no, I'm not really hungry. And, like we sat there and got a couple laughs at the end. And I'm like, yeah, you seem athletic. We should play. And he's like, cool. And he's like, I'll call you, let you know. I'm thinking, oh, and I'll immediately was like, got in the car, talked to my friends. I'm like, I will never see that man again.
Wow.
You can catch it. Yeah.
I don't think it takes it. I honestly don't think it takes anything more than 3 minutes of sitting across from somebody. If you're like, not saying for sure or anything, but like the vibe you catch within the first 3 minutes feels like it's the vibe that's going to carry on. I've been wrong every now and then, but I don't think I'm entirely wrong in this one.
Yeah. And most of the time I've told you, like I've gone out with people and this guy, I'm like, okay, I would have gone out again. Maybe there could have been some more personality because it wasn't any red flags, anything wrong with them. It wasn't like a huge spark. I wasn't blown away, but I'm like, well, maybe there's something there. I'm just missing. He's nervous. But I mean, we sat down and immediately like he's kind of looking around. My phone rang and I checked and I flipped. He's like, do you need to take it? I said, no, it's business. And I turned it off. So I wasn't really on my phone, even though I had some deals going. But it just seemed like he wouldn't quite look me in the eye. He was just kind of looking around. He didn't really have much to say. And I'm like, this dude is so not into me. And that's okay.
That's how it goes. That's why you meet, though.
Right. But you're also kind of like, now what?
Do you do a phone call before you meet people?
It depends. Some of them, a little bit of a chat, and they just want to get out of the way. Like you said, meet your 3 minutes. I think we talked about, I told you I call them drive-bys.
Yeah.
Where they're like, hey, I'm just going to be in town. Would you like to get some coffee? And I had that bad situation where I figured out that just means they want to look at you. And that really weird date. The guy wouldn't leave. But yeah.
He wouldn't leave?
I think I told you it was the guy that scared me.
Look, I don't remember them all. I talked a lot. So you probably did, but I may need to hear it again.
I did. But he talked me into just dropping by my office. And 45 minutes later, we were about engaged and made him to leave. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? And my girlfriend's like, it's pretty. And she's like, that's because they just want to give an excuse that they don't like you. They're out the door, but they want to see what you look like. So I call those drive-bys.
That's fair. I like this.
You just, one guy said, hey, I'm just coming through. I left my sunglasses at the hanger. And I'm kind of laughing like, really? But I'm like, sure, yeah, I'd love to get an iced tea or something. And we met and hit it off. And he stayed about, he had 5 minutes, stayed about 20, 25, and then said, let's go out. I'm like, that'd be great.
That's cool. That's cool.
So I'm not going to pressure anyone ever, like make you buy me dinner. You got to be here for 2 hours or, anything big. If you want to meet for coffee, I'm good with that.
So a year later, roughly, that we've talked, how do you, have you changed much on how you approach the apps or anything?
I know, he's somewhat, I think we talked about it, you get burnout.
Yeah.
You go through it or you do one or two things, you just go through all the madness and then you're like, oh my God, I can't do this. Or you meet someone, you go out for a little while and it doesn't seem to work out. So then you're kind of like, all right. Or I'm like, I need a break.
Yeah.
I still got some crazy, one guy was a nurse out of Memphis and he seemed really cool at first and was calling. And then all the crazy started to leak out everywhere before I met him. So.
It's one thing that you don't want to have leak out is the crazy. There's a lot of things that can leak out, but you don't want the crazy to leak out.
Super fun, but just like, hey, I'm off today. I haven't had any sleep, but I'm going to pick up my friend in Dallas. It's like 10 hours away after you worked a night shift. I'm like, I don't know, Billy, is that a good call? And it was just starting to come out all the pores.
Oh, the delivery.
And I'm like, it's hard. I'm like, cute and a good time, but no, I'm good.
Yeah, that's pretty rough. So
you would think we've categorized. I did go on one where the guy, just said he was old fashioned, but I think that was kind of funny because he's like, do you cook? And I thought, okay, yeah. I said, well, I tried. And he goes, I like a woman that cooks for me. I'm old fashioned. I'm like, oh, well, that's an interesting statement on the first phone call. So I was like, oh, okay. But I'm thinking, all right, well, maybe he opens doors. Maybe I get to, clean the house. I don't know. So I'm like, whatever, we're going to go out.
Right.
And he played pickleball. So I'm like, yeah, I'll go play with you. No big deal. Then he wanted to go have a drink. And it was kind of funny. I think he was trying to save a little money. So he brought peanut butter and jelly into the bar.
Okay.
So we had a little bite to eat. We're hanging out. But it was, right out of the bat, he was asking me all kinds of stuff. And I looked at him and said, do you know, you're really pushy. Do people tell you? And he's like, what? And I'm like, but he was just so push.
He was taken aback by that, huh?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit. But I promise you 100% he's heard it before.
Oh, yeah. Well, I hope so, unless somebody hasn't had the courage to say it to him like you did.
Yeah, I did. And then, he told me like the last girl he dated, he was like, we went out, I went to her church, she went to mine. I was like, wait, what? Like right out of the gate. And it's just, I think that's, he really was looking for someone to fit into his life and settle down, I think, very quickly. But that's to a lot of people very intimidating. And that's, he started with, what do you want with this? Where do you see this going? I'm like, whoa. I'm like, you're really pushy. Phew. But then, I once said it wasn't a bad guy. So we went out on a second date and went to the park, had a picnic, went to play a little pickleball and hung out. And then I was like, I just wasn't feeling it and I knew it. So he called me a couple of days later and he wanted to go look at a house. And I'm like, well, I'll just tell him. But the best part, I think I told you, is I show up at the house and he's like, go over there. And he starts taking pictures of me at the house, in the house. And I'm like, no, really, I don't want to take pictures. And he's telling the realtor she's shy. And I'm like, no, I don't want pictures in this house with you. Like I'm going to live here.
Right.
He had me on the back deck. He had me in the kitchen. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so
my gosh. Oh,
it's
no.
A little much, to be in the house. I mean, I just went to see the house. You're for years, don't know, but I'm a realtor too.
Right.
So I really just wanted to see this house on a lake. And it was absolutely a beautiful house. But he was taking pictures of me in the house, in the kitchen, where he wanted someone that could cook, and out on the deck and different places. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so awkward. Like it's making me, and I was like, no, I don't want to take pictures. And he kept pushing me into these pictures. And I told him, I'm like, this is a little too much for me. Like,
I'd say so. Jesus.
not feeling this really.
He's getting his own, like, I'm sure, like, maybe he said that out to his friends. Here's my girlfriend in the kitchen. Here she is over here. Like, oh my God.
Right. And it was just a little much.
Yeah.
A little much for me. Yeah, but that's okay. Like I said, he wasn't a bad guy in any way. It was a little much for me. That's all.
Yeah. I think it started with the PB&Js and that ended pretty quick, you know?
Dude, that wasn't even the worst part. I thought that was kind of funny. I'm like, oh my God, we're totally eating these sandwiches in a barbecue joint, like having some beer. And then I think we ordered some fries or something, which is funny. But it was more like when he said, do you like cook? And a lot of people said, do you cook? And I said, well, not as well as I eat, or I like to eat.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And I was like, do you cook? And I said, I'm actually learning to cook more. And he's like, oh, I want a woman that cooks for me. I'm old fashioned. I went, okay.
Yeah, at least he was candid and transparent about it. Like sometimes it just seems like, hey, I don't know, am I in 2023 or 1970?
Right. And, that's fine. Like it's what he wanted. And it's not that I don't cook. I just thought that was kind of I haven't met you and you're trying to quantify whether I will fit into your life as a spouse kind of thing. Hit me sort of like it's a little much before I've even got to see you to face.
Hell of a courtship process right there. Hell of a courtship process.
Yeah. The funny part too, like I said, is he said he was old fashioned.
Yeah, exactly. It's hoping you're barefoot and pregnant, I think too. Jeez.
Well, I was like, does that mean he opens the doors? Like I said, what does that mean in this day and age? But he was only really in the old fashioned that he wanted me to cook. So it was kind of he didn't want to take me to dinner. That's what I thought was funny.
I can't cook, bro, but I can order the hell out of anything. So
me both. Yeah. I can find some good restaurants.
Yeah, exactly. How much in the wild activity have you gotten been approached much?
That's a great thing. I think I told you is like now I've got the combination of we can go out and also you can get on an app and you can meet someone downtown. So it's not like you're going to the local bar and everybody knows you're there or everybody knows somebody. So here, you can go downtown, and I don't usually go a lot, but when my friends are in town, we go. So I had a friend a few weeks ago, and there's a real tall, nice looking guy. I just really had no idea what I would have said. Like, hey, you're here with your friends. Want to dance? I'm like, I feel like I'm a little old for that, but it is nice. And as long as I think most people are open, and by open, I mean facing out the bar, with a smile, making eye contact. Yeah, I'm very approachable, and people will come and talk to me. So Cindy and I went out and we've talked to a few different guys, and she kept dragging me away from him. It was really funny. She's like, I'm saving you. I'm like, okay. So there's definitely, my friend, there's definitely, opportunities. I've been downtown and I have met people just for short conversations there. Yeah. With that said, obviously.
But not often, huh?
Yeah, well, if I get out there, but obviously if I'm interested, they would get a number. So I haven't done that quite yet. And every once in a while you get the youngin, and I'm like, me, I don't play in the kiddie pool.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I mean, there's a question, I think, in the open of the show. I don't think I know in the show, or not a question, but it's a statement, I guess. So do you feel more optimistic about the apps or more pessimistic about the app?
That's a good question. You feel like when you got on them, I think your intent is like, okay, there's got to be someone. So you go into it optimistically.
Yeah.
And, even though some of the dates I've been on have been a complete train wreck, like you cannot make this stuff up. And that's okay too. I just tell myself personally, it makes for a good story. It just turns into a little bit of burnout. And I think for a lot of people, it makes them sort of jaded.
Yeah.
They kind of get like, people tell me, well, I do this, and this now. And I feel like if you go into an attitude where you're already got walls up, you're not giving yourself a fair opportunity to actually let someone in if they are genuine.
Right.
So you have to go into it with, I feel like a positive attitude, like I'm going to give this a go and see if I can find a match out there. But then I have to be open to what they're saying and not really kick everybody's ass, basically. It comes in, oh, well, you just said this, you're off the list, scratch. And then a lot of people, I think maybe too picky, like, oh, yeah, well, I don't, it's easy when you see their picture to be like, oh, well, they're not very attractive. But sometimes I'm like, well, let's see what else they have to offer, because it's not going to be about looks. In 20 years, we're all going to be wrinkled and no hair and whatever else. So you might as well see a person have something worth having in the long run.
Yeah, that's a tough one for a lot of people to get past that part.
You can't get
past that part. You're really eliminating a lot.
And I really feel like if they would do some apps maybe, and I don't think anybody would apply to it, but something maybe not with pictures as much.
Yeah, Ted Lasso, banter. They had that in Ted Lasso where there's no pictures.
That's right. That's right. And then, obviously that there's the catch-22 for that, because if you open it and you're like, oh, I am so not attractive, then you feel like you've wasted some time. At the same time, like I said, I'm open to being like, okay, they're not really what I would consider my perfect looking person, but they've got a nice smile, or, I'm fairly tall. They're fairly tall. They have a nice smile. They've same interests as me. So let's give it a go.
Right.
It's better to find someone that you have a long-term connection with just being like, oh, I'm with the hot guy.
Yeah, I mean, if you can connect, it's so like, I don't think it's hard for people with, certain personalities to connect, but then to compatible connect is a whole different
A
story.
whole different level.
Yeah,
It's true. And I think the dating apps make that hard.
Yeah.
They make it really hard. It's very easy to say what you want to say on there and not be yourself.
Like in my experiences, and I don't talk about my dating experience a lot, I don't have too many, but it's really like I can connect with people really easily. But then once it starts to get on, like I'm an optimist, and if somebody else isn't, then that's going to wear on me. Like, all right, so that's going to be, eventually you find out that might be a deal breaker. Or I just like, I don't fight. I'm not a fighter. We'll talk it out. And if we can't talk it out, then take care. Life's too fucking short. But like other people are fighters, I won't do it.
And I'm with you. Like, we go out there, you meet someone, you hear their stories. It's easy for us to make a connection and go on that date.
Yeah.
And then the second date, like you said, you start to find out, well, is there something there? Even the guy I went out with like a month. So we're hanging out or whatever. And he's actually in 60s. And all of a sudden he's like, yeah, so I still smoke pot, here and there. I'm like, come again? Like, I was so surprised, like come out of left field. And it wasn't just that, but it was just sort of funny I was like, oh, okay, well, wasn't expecting that. So you have to decide, like, smoking's like an absolute no-go. And I'm like, well, that's kind of smoking. And anyways, he wanted a break, and I was like, maybe this just isn't meant to be. And it wasn't, but it was just kind of funny, like to be there and be like, oh, well, I mean, when do you tell someone that?
Yeah. I mean, like, I think you did the right thing. I might as well say it from the jump. So that way you're not emotionally invested 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 dates in. And all of a sudden you find out this thing, and then you're compromising yourself because you probably already like them too much. And you're like, oh, well, I can not worry about this thing.
We were about 10 dates in.
Oh, were you? Oh, okay.
4 weeks of hanging out quite a bit.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's not obviously you don't stay on the first, second, or third date. So what's the window? And it wasn't all the time. So I was like, this just caught me off. I'm like, interesting, because I'm an athlete. And, I was like, I just don't even, this is a guy who like takes care of himself, works out the whole bit. And like, oh, by the way, I like to just smoke pot to calm down. I was like, what again? Yeah. So I mean, you kind of got to figure out what outweighs what.
That's an interesting one, because, like I would say in the beginning, if he knows that it's an issue for you, if he doesn't know it's an issue for you, then, it's not an issue for him. So you may not even think to bring it up.
Right. And I don't think he knew. And then he finally just like, by the way, I was like, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, he
changed the landscape.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think he had a little minute of meltdown, and which, how this happens a lot. It's like, I need a little break, whatever. And then 10, 11, 12 days go by, and it's like, hey, happy Easter. How was your Sunday? And I'm like, yeah, great. Was out with my brother. And, like, you're like, where do we go from here?
They call that zombie. And, they're gone. And then all of a sudden they show back up. Here we are.
Yeah. And there's some dynamics, he was doing some traveling and all that. But I mean, I just don't even know how to handle that when you're like, okay, we spent all this time. Like you said, you get a little invested, and then half the time you spent goes by, and then it's like, how's it going? Yeah, the ones that get me, and you and I talk about this a lot, is the ones that are funny. You talk for a couple of weeks, or you even meet them and everything's going great, and then boom, they disappear. And literally 3 months go by, 4 months, sometimes 6, and they're like, oh my God, you just crossed my mind. How are you? And I'm like, oh, I crossed your mind 3, 6 years. Like, interesting. And I always feel like I'm never rude, but I always think it's a funny situation. Like, I have a feeling they dated someone, and for whatever reason it didn't work out, and that's fine. But then it's just sort of funny to be like, hey there, how's it going? I'm like, good.
Being a guy who does that, because I'll do that too, but I don't do it with any intent of other than, hey, what's going on? Because I'm not like gonna chase anybody or run anybody down or anything. But you had a good date. That the other person may not be interested, or you may not be interested, but you're still kind of like, hey, that was a good person. How you doing? What's going on? But I know that is the exception and not the rule.
And it's funny, but I get that a lot, which cracks me up. And I'm never rude, but I almost feel like, damn it, I came in second place again. Like they found someone, didn't work out, and now they're back to like I'm like the runner up at Miss America. Like, hey, waving and smiling. It's just funny. Some of them, like if they reach back out, like sometimes the ship has sailed, and other times, if they want to go hang out, I'd hang out and see where it goes. I mean, just because it wasn't his choice then doesn't mean that I think people get like so uptight and so mad and so upset, and I'm like, so what? I'm like, whatever happened, maybe something happened in their life I didn't know about. Maybe they did date for 3 months, and then we're like, oh my God, this girl is crazy, but that girl didn't seem crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know what the situation is, but it's just being nice. You can always develop a friendship there. I think I told you I had a guy in Florida, and we went out, had a really good time, and he was a couple hours away, had gone, like set up a trip to go see him, and right before he just was like, oh, I don't know, it's going to work out. I'm like, no, wait a second. So I call. He's just texted me. I call. He does doesn't answer.
Oh, no.
Yeah. And so I'm like, wow, okay. So, okay. And I'm like, that's fine. So I just left him a message. I didn't blow it up. I figured he just found somebody closer. I was kind of like, it is what it is. We're 3 hours apart. So fine, whatever. That's on him. And literally, Chris, 3 months went by. 3 months went by. And the text I get, I was walking up at a doctor's appointment. The text I got was, oh my God, I have been so busy. I haven't been able to call you. How are you?
Oh my God. 3 months, huh?
3 months from blowing me off from coming to stay with him to, oh my God, I've been so busy. I'm like, did your phone drop in a lake?
Yeah, so busy. That one
so, and this is, by the way,
way,
this is a guy who had been texting me under, I think they forget, like he was texting me under a boardroom table. And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, I'm in a board meeting.
Oh, shit.
I'm just saying he had no qualms about texting and meeting, but all in 3 months had gone by.
Yeah, it's funny how it all fits the narrative when they want it to the narrative.
Right. And ironically, we kept, we talked for a few days and I finally was going to tell him, look, that's great, but where are you going with this? And this is crazy, absolutely crazy. I'm like, hey, hey, how's your day going? He's like, I just walked in and found my dad dead. True story.
Shit.
So I was really happy I was nice to him.
Yeah, that's a saving grace for sure.
Like I said, I could have been like, look, you a-hole, like going off on him, and I didn't. And actually, we haven't talked lately, but we stayed friends for years. And when my daughter played in a volleyball tournament close by, I went to dinner with him and his friends, had a great time. We went to an art show. It was really cool.
That's cool.
Still
That's
value into people, I guess is my point. You can't just completely blow them out of the water.
100%. I have a view on that I think is unique, but I'm with you. I'm with you 100%.
Yeah, it turned out, like I said, it was funny. It was a bad situation. I just was nice about it. And we turned out to be really good friends, even though it never went any further than that. So
a year later, then probably, I think we did this about 7 months ago too. I have a feeling we'll probably be doing this in another 7 months.
Oh God, don't say that.
I'm just saying, like, I'm not cheering for it. Like, I think the whole great thing is like figuring out, like, we all can figure out what we don't want quicker than we can figure out what we want. Like, you can immediately say like, that's not for me. But then when you figure out, hey, that one might be for me, that shit takes a hell of a lot longer. So it's just a journey.
Right. And like I said, it's so weird. I wish we could almost diagram, like I laughed, I do the crazy hot matrix, but
yeah.
You could almost diagram like how certain people act in certain dates like that we've talked about. You go out and you got the interrogator who's asking you, and I'm like, I feel like I've got a light on my face. And they're like, so how do you feel about this? Like they're trying to get everything they can out of you, like at day one, make sure they're not making a bad decision. And I'm like, oh my God, this is so uncomfortable. Right. Or you get on the ones that are still hung up on their exes. Like I feel like we could make all kinds of charts. Or the ones that have been burned and they're like, you can tell they're just very standoffish. I'm like, why are we here if you're so guarded that I don't even feel like we can have a conversation? So it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a journey. It's no doubt.
But I haven't out that much just because I've got other things going on in life. But it's definitely a nice combination now of being able to go on the apps, but also being out in public and seeing how that works out.
Yeah, you have a unique situation. Like you can really do a good share of in the wild out there. I mean, that's just going to be normal. Walking through some of the coolest parts of the country you'll ever walk through is down there in Nashville.
And I absolutely love that there's such a variety of people. Just not the little town feel here, and you have the country, which I love. But you've also got all these people coming in internationally or from other places. We met a couple from Canada whose daughter got married in Vegas, which is so cool. And they stopped through Nashville on the way back. I mean, it's just kind of neat to once again get to know their story, how they made it to Nashville from England.
Right.
So it's been kind of fun. I was trying to talk her husband. She had this T-shirt held up that said, "My jugs are real," and had moonshine jugs. And she said, "Oh, my husband, I don't think he wants to buy it for me." I'm like, "Let's go talk to Glenn." Angela wants this shirt. So I mean, it's a good time. It's fun. You should come visit. I'm sad you're not here yet.
Yeah. That's one place I definitely need to get down to. They're not just to see you or just to see, Tootsie's. Let me go to all 3 levels and listen to the band on all 3 levels of Tootsie's. I mean,
that's where we met at the rooftop, is where they pushed me into the Irishman, who obviously was just there for a fun time for the weekend.
We've had
some, we've had bands, we've danced with people. I mean, there's just so much. There's, people, it's the bridesmaid capital of the world. Like, it's crazy. May was here. My friend Cindy, there's a wine festival. I'm like, come on in. She's coming in for a wine festival. Like, it's just a lot to do, which is so much fun. Keep threatening to make videos when we're out because it's just.
Yeah, sure. I get it. Like, you don't want to have proof of the night, but you want to have the night.
I'm okay with it. You see my weather videos. I'm okay with it.
Yeah, no, I know you are, but I don't know about the people you're filming may not be all right with it.
Well, what they don't remember won't hurt them.
Yeah, and they won't remember. And they won't. It is Vegas life light. That's for sure.
And I'm going to tell you, we followed some of my dates on cameras. You just cannot. The guy with the dirty dancing, I'm like, gosh, he's pushing my dress up. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what are you doing? It was just to have that on film and just some of the other stuff. I'm like, what is happening in this world?
You know, it kind of brings up an interesting like perspective of it, you know, with all the different experiences you've had with the dates, it can be kind of fun too. I mean, you look back on it, you're sure I'd like to be with somebody, but damn, there's some pretty interesting experiences.
We have, and I think I've told you, like, I've had some of the best dates. Like a guy I went out with off and on, we were together for like, you know, he lived somewhere else, so we'd see each other for a year. But the first date with him, he was a pilot.
Okay.
He was in a hotel. We went in and we sat down at the bar. He said, we got to sit. He was 20 years in the military and his ex-wife moved with the kids. So he retired, went to Southwest, and he was flying. He said, tradition is you meet the captain. So we're sitting there. We each have a drink. We're having a drink. And he's like, this is Captain Stubing, whatever his name was. And he goes, oh my gosh. He goes, how did you guys meet? I just looked and I said, oh my God, that's a great story. I'm a stripper in Pensacola here. Yeah. And I said, I was out there dancing. And I'm like, and he was throwing quarters at me. And this guy I just met looks at me. He goes, no, it was nickels. And I turn back and I look at him and I said, oh yeah, that's right. I was bruised all over. And this guy's eyes are huge. I'm like, so anyways, like afterwards we went to dinner, we hit it off. And I'm like, we've been together ever since. Yeah. And he's like, oh, and he had a conversation. We stopped and we left. And the next day I'm like, and he goes, yeah, I got on the flight. We never told him any different. He's like, is she a stripper? And I'm like, and you went with it, right? And then we went to a bar, we walk in and we've had a couple drinks, we're laughing. And the lady's like, oh my God, what are you celebrating? And I'm like smiling. He goes, she's been sober for 3 months. And I'm like, yep, that's me. She comes back, gets us a table and she's patting me on the back. That is so amazing. And, you know, like, so we've been already had a couple drinks. So it's just, you know, I've had some really good dates as well.
Yeah. Those are the experience. Oh, cool.
Oh, yeah. You got the highs and the lows, but plenty that were not boring on either end of the spectrum.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know.
Sometimes you got to hang in there because you're like, what is happening?
That's the trick. It's the journey. Yeah. It really is. I say that too often, I think now, but it really is like it. And once you find the one, it's all fucking worth it.
Right. And people are always like, why didn't you leave? And sometimes I'm like, you know, I'm being polite, but you also are like, this is not like, I can't, like, this is really happening.
Right.
And, you know, you just kind of, like you said, along for the ride. I'm like, how far am I going to take this until a certain point? You're like, okay, I'm out. Yeah.
Totally cool. Well, good, girl. I just wanted to check in. Like, there's a few people I'm definitely checking in with as we go through, but you know, you had the most, like, again, you're the reason, one of the reasons I got the show started. So,
you know, I mean, honestly, I could have been engaged with a lake house if I had just hung in there. So,
atta girl. Thank you for being along for the ride of the Swipe Wrong podcast, where we take everyday people like you and me telling their everyday stories of their swipe right life. Show is produced by Jay Pelham. He is the host of Pelham Place. If you want to reach out to the show and tell us your story, we'd love to hear it. Give us a call. Google Voice us at 317-426-6616. Leave your information and we'll get back to you, or just your story. You can also email us at swipewrongpod@gmail.com. We are on Insta, Facebook, TikTok. We're out there. I am Chaos, the host of Chaotic Commentary. You can find me pretty much anywhere that you see me. And next week, the saga continues.
Swipe wrong. Swipe wrong.